Okay, guys, welcome.
Stand in front of the computer.
Stand in front of the computer. Okay, this is very different to our library setup, but I'd like to thank the university and Kelly for offering this incredible meeting space tonight. This is actually the team theater, which I was told is off limits for everybody except the team and Yalecrest residents. So we're sort of on the inside of the inside, and I could not be more excited. This is also our first meeting where we are using our integrated platform with our hometown, which I'm very excited about. And I want to thank the mayor's office. Hannah's joining us remotely today, but we also just had our engagement grant funded that's going to allow our partnership and pilot program with our hometown to run. And we want feedback from all of the community members and everyone to see how we build engagement more efficiently and productively with more imagination with everyone in Yalecrest. So keep an eye out for that and make sure to let us know if we don't have your email. We want to make sure that we're sending you the information and articles and updates and resources that make your life better. Yes, Jim.
You might want to recognize Mary Ann. She started here.
We have the founder of Yalecrest Neighborhood Council in the room. Stand up, Mary Ann.
Yeah. So I called up Mayor Wilson and started griping about everything wrong in our neighborhood, and he said, well, we don't have any neighborhood councils yet in your area. Do you want to start one? And I'm like, oh, is this what I got myself into?
This is an incredible moment of institutional continuity to have the founder of the council in the room. So thank you for founding this group that allows us to work more powerfully together. Let's see. I don't think I have other announcements. So Hannah is joining us remotely, which we're very grateful for. And I am not exactly sure how to turn the screen over to her, but I'm going to trust that somebody else does know how to do that, and we'll listen to her update. And then I saw that part of her information tonight was based on the proposed zoning changes for expanded housing, which has become a very hot topic in the neighborhood over the last couple of weeks. And I'll say, and I'm sure she'll reiterate, that they've extended the response time. So that now goes into May, so we can have a much longer and more productive discussion.
They're going to have the public comments at the planning commission or the city council or both.
I'm going to let Hannah speak to that specifically. I know that the slides I've seen are directed to the Planning Commission, but as we'll talk about in our discussion, I think the City Council is also a really important part of public feedback, and I think we should probably plan on both. But I'll let Hannah speak to it more specifically. And Hannah, I'll turn the time over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. First of all, I have FOMO that it sounds like you guys are in such a cool meeting space, so I'm sorry I'm not there in person. I really appreciate Rachel accommodating me tonight. I have a family wedding on Saturday, and as most of you know, those wedding festivities tend to spill over into the days before the wedding. So sorry that I'm not there. Um, I think I'll just share my own screen unless that ruins the tech, just so I can move my slides forward. Let's see. Does that work okay? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hopefully it's just normal and you're not seeing presenter notes and everything, but I don't think I have any notes to see. Okay, so I'll talk about this expanding housing options first. To answer your question, Jim, right now this feedback is just going to planning staff as they're working on this proposal. Then it will go to the Planning Commission and City Council. So there's technically still 3 opportunities to submit your public feedback. But right now this is pretty formative time because I think planning staff want to hear your perspectives on how this would impact your neighborhood and what tweaks you would like to see or what you like, what you hate, etc. So this is a proposed change to the city's zoning code that the planning division is looking at, just as one of many tools to try and increase our housing stock in the city. It would simply allow property owners, specifically in residential neighborhoods who own single family homes, to add gentle density on their own lot, whether that's a secondary unit or a smaller townhome or like a tiny home of some kind, in their backyards. So this is obviously pretty dependent on the overall lot size. If you are on a smaller lot, or maybe you have already taken full advantage of all of your setbacks, and don't have that much space in your backyard, then it likely your home or property would not be eligible for something like this. So it certainly wouldn't impact every single family home in the city, but only the ones that have space on the lot for it. And yeah, the goal is just to add a few more housing units, especially in these neighborhoods that we know are desirable and walkable and have great infrastructure connected to, our local grocery stores and restaurants and everything. Um, Especially for folks who, may not want to live in an apartment building. So, this QR code or this link will take you to the shape.slc page, where you can learn more about it and provide feedback, or even like ask specific questions about how this might impact you or your neighbors. And then a planner can get back to you. But as I mentioned, there will be future opportunity to provide feedback on this proposal as well. And it may change drastically, based on community feedback by the time that it gets to Planning Commission or City Council. So this is just step one, in looking at a tool to help with our housing stock in the city. Does anyone have any questions specifically on that? Because I know this is something top of mind for a lot of you.
Have one.
Yeah.
The question for Mary Ann, Hannah.
Yeah, are you going to require that these property owners have off-street parking?
The requirement would be one parking space per unit. So if someone puts in just one unit, it would only require one parking space. But obviously go up from there. 2 units would require 2 parking spaces. Any other questions on that? Okay. I would really encourage you all to, if it's something that's important to you, to follow this link here, just to learn more, because I'm keeping it pretty high level, right? I'm not a city planner. They're the experts. I know some of your neighbors were able to attend a meeting on Monday, like an open house style meeting where planners talked about this in more detail. But if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me about it and I can connect you with someone from planning. Next, I'm sure all of you are familiar with this program at this point, but the city is launching our landscaping equipment exchange program again for the spring. This is just an opportunity for you to change in any gas-powered lawn equipment, so like a lawnmower, a trimmer, an edger, a leaf blower, to get a voucher to help buy an electric one. I say this all the time in my meetings. It may not seem like this would have a huge impact on our air quality, but using a gas-powered lawnmower is the same amount of pollution as you would put into the atmosphere if you drove your car for 1 hour. So it does make an impact. Not to mention it helps with like our noise quality in our neighborhoods. I know sometimes I get noise complaints about loud mowers and leaf blowers and things. So the electric ones are a lot quieter. So those applications opened yesterday and they stay open until the fund is depleted. So I would certainly encourage you to apply now if you're really interested. But if you want to think about it for a few weeks, usually it seems like it takes kind of 4 to 6 weeks for those funds to be depleted. So this QR code will take you to the webpage with more information, but I believe the equipment can be changed in at Ace Hardware or Home Depot. And I think all that they ask is that the gas be removed from the equipment before you exchange it. But if you don't currently have equipment to exchange, you can also just receive a voucher for a slightly smaller amount, to still help buy new electric equipment, which is great. And then lastly, I just wanted to share that the mayor a few weeks back announced that Salt Lake City is officially in a stage 2 drought advisory. The city is super aware of how low our snowpack is from this winter. I guess we got a little bit extra today, which is good. But this stage 2 drought advisory requires the city to reduce our water usage by 10%. And we're asking residents to participate in voluntary reduction strategies to hopefully reduce our city's water usage by 10 million gallons per day. There's a lot of great resources that you all can use. As we have learned from the excellent Great Salt Lake presentations that you have received as a neighborhood council over the past few months, we know that outdoor watering does not help the Great Salt Lake, right? And so when we're looking at reducing, of course, we want to, turn off the faucet when we're brushing our teeth, but reducing outdoor watering will have probably the biggest impact on conserving our water usage, while also not diverting water from the Great Salt Lake. So the state has a great weekly lawn watering guide. It gets updated every week and tells you whether or not you should turn on your sprinklers, and how many waterings you should be doing throughout the week. Right now, if for Salt Lake County, it's still in no watering, no sprinklers needed. It's also important for all of us to check our sprinkler systems, check for any indoor leaks. And the city has a lot of great partnerships with Utah State University. One of those services is Water Maps, where you can access that through your water bill. They use like an aerial map of the homes in Salt Lake City to determine how much porous material you have, how much grass, how much other like garden areas, and determines roughly how much outdoor water you should be using each month to keep your vegetation alive. And it identifies ways for you to conserve if you're maybe using too much water in one specific area of your yard. So it's a really great tool. We also have grass seed that the city sells, excuse me, that is great for drought. It's a drought tolerant seed mixture that Utah State University came up with, that requires way less water than our Kentucky bluegrasses, and is really easy to plant. You don't have to rip out your current lawn. You can kind of just let it die back, cut it really short, and then start sprinkling the new seed. So if any of you are looking for ways to conserve water, I'd be happy to send you a more comprehensive list of all the resources that are available, both from the city and the state. I think that's all I have. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Is that okay? Like, on the water reduction,
Mhm.
that 10 million gallons a day, what's
Uh-huh.
what percentage reduction does that correspond to? Do you know?
Ooh, I would have to look that up and let you know because I'm not sure what our average daily use is as a city. So I'd have to look. Sorry about that.
All right. I'll try to save a few million.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for doing your part.
On that ice detention warehouse, the city is going to limit the water. Why don't you just turn off the meter?
Correct. That's good feedback. I mean, we've certainly heard that from other residents. I think there's maybe a city in Georgia that did that or tried to do that. So I think the mayor is trying to, work under the advice of the city attorneys to make sure we're using every tool that we have. So yeah. Any other questions or feedback for the city?
Looks like that's it, Hannah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Okay. See you next month.
Thanks.
All right. We have Representative Nguyen who's joining us today. I'm so honored to have her here and to have her as our representative. I don't know how closely everyone was able to follow the session, but I think for me, a few of the moments that I was the most proud of and the most moved by came from Representative Nguyen, and I feel like we're so lucky to have her representing all of our people here in Utah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here. I see a lot of familiar faces. Nguyen, this is my first term. I'm still in my first term representing House District 23, which is the whole east bench of Salt Lake and parts of the U of U, and then goes up to Summit County as well. Summit Park. I'm the only Democrat that represents outside of Salt Lake County. That's because of good old gerrymandering that happened in 2020. So we were able to take on, I think it's just like 113 homes in Summit Park. And what's funny is where I'm the only Democrat that represents Summit County, I get called up constantly to meet with folks up in Park City and Summit County to deal with that they're dealing with. So it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. We just finished session. I'm gonna keep it really short and simple for some of the highlights for a session. I actually did bring, if any of you guys are interested, just a little quick front and back summary of the state budget this year and where we approved the bill, what the money is getting spent on. It was just shy of 32 billion this year. 31.6 billion is the budget that we passed this year. And then there's also this handout that's the budget summary that goes into greater detail. Then I'm gonna open it up to questions from all of you. This session was not as brutal as last session. There was some bills that would have been pretty devastating for immigration, certain things on a higher ed that they were trying to do that actually were stopped. One of the ones that Rachel was mentioning was Trevor Lee, representative from Layton, was trying to pass a lot of bills that would have been harmful to immigrants, undocumented folks, the way that we would have funded public education and certain things. But what was interesting this session was the Senate was kind of the saving grace that even though the bill passed out of the House, Senate stopped a lot of those horrible bills that Representative Lee was trying to pass. So that's why when you heard that this was not as painful as last session, if you've heard some of that sentiment, it was because for whatever reason, the Senate was a lot more reasonable this time around to cut some of those major bills that would change things. Some of the stuff that did get away from us that, you know, depending on where you are on the political party line, stuff for Democrats that were a little hard with judicial changes. They shortened, they passed out the bill that would make people on death row shorter sentences rather than the long term for them to be able to appeal. We created a new judicial court that is for people disputing different cases. So it's a whole unique 3-person judge that will get to look at certain appeals, and that's concerning for us because they're going to be picked by state leadership, and they get to cherry pick these judges who get to go in and when there's an appeal to a case, it goes to this select court. So that's a new thing that is concerning. We did a flat tax cut on income of 0.05%, which, you know, Republicans all thought that's the 5th or 6th year in a row that they have cut the income tax. And we have seen data that says that only equates to less than $50 per household in annual savings. So not really meaningful in terms of you know, really helping working families and making it a little easier for them. Before the start of the session during interim, the speaker said to all of the different departments throughout the state that they want to do a 10% exercise in a 10% cut in their budget to see what that would look like. I don't know if you guys heard about that. And so it made everyone from health department to the state school board go through that exercise to see where they can essentially what he called trimming the fat. Luckily, they went through that process. They came and presented to the legislature, and it wasn't going to be as scary and dire and this, you know, slash and dash thing that everyone was fearing. Some departments did report back that it was a good exercise. I realize I'm not standing there. Oh, can they see me now?
Yeah, they've been able to see the whole time.
Some of them did report that it was a good exercise, a good stress test to go through to see what they would need to be able to cut to get a little bit more, run their departments a little bit more effectively. So I serve on the business and labor committee, the Rev and Tax Committee, and the Natural Resources Appropriations Committee. That one I was really happy to be on so that I can kind of see what they are proposing with the different departments, from Department of Ag to the DEQ to Natural Resources, how they were spending their money, where they were spending their resources, and how are they thinking about our resources, how we manage it more properly, how are we taking into consideration our environmental factors. So serving on the appropriations committee is a big deal to be able to make sure that we are directing money where it needs to go, especially, you know, when I'm out in our district, the things that we care about with the Great Salt Lake and our air quality and how we are using some of those resources. I'm able to have a front row to that. I was also able to finagle my way onto the Water Commission, the Water Development Commission. And that's a big one where all water bills come through that commission. We meet during interim, we'll do a couple meetings during legislative general session. I'm meeting with water commissioners from folks from all around the state. And I will say from my experience after serving on this Water Development Commission is we are looking at it. The legislature really is looking at ways that we can manage the Great Salt Lake a little bit better, policies that could help. I was able to pass a bill, and I didn't know it was going to be that big of a deal for a Democrat to pass a water bill, but the Republican legislature didn't like it when Democrats run water bill a lot. But I was able to get one passed where water district, the Great Basin Regional District that manages from Salt Lake to Weaver to Central District, now part of their long-term water conservation plan, they do have to consider the Great Salt Lake in their long-term conservation plan. So that's, you know, that's not, it's a big thing in terms of the way the bill's been written for years, they never had to take into consideration the Great Salt Lake. So now they do have to work it into their plan. This was a collaboration with our Salt Lake City folks, Laura Briefer, who works with Salt Lake City's water infrastructure and water management. A couple of other things I was able to get done. My personal passion is public education, working with school district, namely Salt Lake School District, to make sure we're getting the funding, we're getting the program that we need. I am working with the Salt Lake School District on getting a CTE high school. Do you guys know what CTE is? Continuing Technical Education. Riley Elementary, where I actually went to school over on the west side on 900 West and 13th South. That was one of the schools that was shut down during the last round of school closures a couple of years ago. And we've identified that location as the best one for where the CTE high school for the district will go. But we're doing a cross collaboration with Murray School District, with Granite School District, so students can spend 2 periods out of their day to come to the CTE high school and get training. The program is, I think, over 20 different programs, from medical, from IT to graphic, you know, whatever, like we find that it's jobs of the future for kids to get some training before they leave school, get some kind of certification, so that if they choose or are not able to attend college, or a college not right for them, that they're set on some kind of career path. So my role with the legislature on there is make sure that we can give the funding to get that school up and going. With another bill that I passed that does work in conjunction with the school system is we do tier 1 screening in schools for kids, vision screening. And I was able to work with Friends for Sight, which is a nonprofit that contracts with a lot of the LEAs around the state to make sure that kids who families cannot necessarily don't have health insurance or don't know that their children have any kind of vision problem, we were able to get funding and appropriations requests and pass a bill to make it easier for parents to know when their kids have vision problem that we've identified during those in-school screenings, that they can, the full circle way of making sure they get their glasses or whatever need that they have to make sure they can, thrive in school. Another bill was with firefighters and public safety that had to do with businesses and carbon dioxide leaks and making sure that there's more availability for trained professionals to go into businesses and properly assess those big, huge carbon dioxide tanks so that it's not leaking for safety of the employees and patrons coming through there. So that was what I was able to accomplish. I know we had a lot that was kind of doozy this session, so I'm going to open it up to you guys to see if there's anything that you'd like to ask questions about.
Two things, Trevor Lee did get a bill passed with Mike McKell. I consider it kind of a voter suppression thing or a fear tactic. What was their intent?
Oh, you talking about SB 153?
Yeah.
That was with John Johnson,
Oh,
not Mike McKell. Okay, so I was waiting for that question. So SB 153 now makes it so that in 2018, we were able, when we registered to vote, or we are a registered voter, we can make our voter information private. That was passed in 2018. Before, all this information was available for people, for candidates running, for firms who work with candidates for political reasons. You had to fall into that category. And
Recording in progress.
And you had to pay to get access to. Sorry, I saw
yeah,
okay. You can get access to that information only if you fell into certain categories. SB 153 that was passed that most Democrats voted against in the Senate and the House now makes it so that it is available to the same category groups of people again. You have to pay, I think, like $1,050 to access this information. Let me be clear on what information they can gain access to and what they cannot. Your name, your voter ID, your address, your registered party, which elections you have voted in, if you're an inactive voter, active voter, and which elections you have voted in. It cannot share who you voted for. That information is still at a federal level protected. The whole purpose of this, I guess, prior to Trump's administration and everything with voter suppression and trying to gain voter files, there was a move back by I think it was Senator Jake Andrews back in 2021 to try to release this information, saying that candidates, political opponents need access to this information so that we know who we are, who we need to go knock on doors with, who do we need to go target, who are likely Democrat voters or Republican voters. Other states have this out in place right now. When we passed a bill in 2018 to make it private, I think we were only one out of less than 10 states that made that information private. Their argument for this bill, why it's necessary, is it's making us in line with the majority of the nation again. Very unpopular. Again, I've heard from a lot of constituents about this bill. They're concerned about the privacy, all rightly so. There's a petition around right now going around on change.org, and I can share that with you if any of you are interested in looking into it. I think it's gained up to 1,500 signatures. It is calling for Governor Cox to call a special session to overturn that bill.
Someone said, can someone see if you have changed political parties or been registered with a different party in the past?
I believe through the voter file with your voter ID that follows which parties you have been registered with, because as of right now, it shows you what your active party affiliation is.
Yeah. That extrajudicial thing that got created, is that aimed primarily at ballot initiatives? So it's making it harder to have ballot initiatives. What else does it cover?
In my opinion, where the decision with Proposition 4 with ballot initiatives and abilities for for voters to reform their government, right? Where the higher courts voted down and ruled that was unconstitutional on how the district was drawn up. That was a big blow to Republicans. In my opinion, this is their way of trying to work around and pick which courts, which judge that can go, and because this appeals court will make it so that these types of things, when it comes up to through court system, that if it's appealed, it goes to this court, and then these 3 appointed judges then can rule the way that they feel that they need to rule on it. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
My other question was about the California Trail. Isn't state parks under natural resources or not?
The California Trail that you're talking about goes through over,
Well, there's an
through a foothill.
initiative by state parks to commemorate the California Trail downtown, in addition to the work that East Bench is doing. And
the net.
it comes right through Yalecrest. So I was just curious if you knew anything about that.
I haven't heard anything yet. I can look into it. Does it cross county at this point, or does it stay in Salt Lake County? Do you know?
It's what?
Does it cross county lines?
No.
It just stays in
They-
Salt Lake City.
Basically, I think what they're looking at is from the Donner Trail Monument through in Salt Lake, because the early pioneers were kept alive by the 49ers that came through and bought a lot of goods. So,
Mhm.
so they're doing a thing downtown, so.
I actually haven't heard.
In Boston.
Yeah, I actually haven't heard anything about it, actually from the city or from the state when I was meeting
State
with,
parks.
yeah, with the state park. Yeah, haven't heard anything about it. I can look into it. Were you able to get in contact with the person I put you in contact with?
Yeah, I've
Earlier this
been
summer?
in contact with somebody there, so
Okay.
I'll share that.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Just thank you for everything you do.
The best part of this job really is meeting folks like you. I've met so many people in the last couple of years since I've been out on the campaign trail, and so many people who deeply care about Utah. And what really, the thing that makes Utah great is our people and how much we love our community and take care of one another. So that's been the best part of this, is meeting folks and seeing, even though we may come from different walks of life, we still share that common thread of our community here in Utah. So thank you for this opportunity to serve you guys and represent you. So thank you.
You can send that link on the.
Yes, I will send it to Rachel, and then Rachel can share it with her.
We'll put it on our website. And be sure and grab, Mom brought her embossed cards, so you can have that in your wallet at any time. She's like, you know my number. Call me when you're arguing with people. Please, like, and great budget resources.
Thank you so much. I think we're going to take just a few minutes now to return to the question of zoning changes, implications. This is kind of an interesting slide that our favorite neighbor, Carly Nielsen, shared from Niche Homes, because as we were talking collectively over the last couple of weeks, there was an idea of, look, how much really turnover is there at Yalecrest? It sort of has this sense of it's always been this way, it will always be this way. What could this really have to do with what we're talking about? And so Robin said, well, why don't we ask someone who knows how many homes sell in every quarter over the last 5 years? So I know that it's a busy slide, and part of why I wanted to have it included in the presentation is so it could go out in our meeting summary, and people can just sort of look at this when they have more time and a laptop in front of them. But we can see that on average, there are quite a few numbers. The total number of homes sold is the navy blue line. And there are quite a few houses turning over every quarter of the last 5 years, which I think is interesting, because what we're presented with in the zoning proposal is how many of those homes may want to decide to become a more densely held lot. So this is just an overview of some numbers. I thought it was interesting. You may find it interesting. If we go to the next slide.
Do we know how many were bought by third parties?
We don't know that. We don't know that. But here is a really important piece of the conversation that I wanted to highlight, which is that I think the last time zoning considerations came up, it's my memory, I may or may not be 100% correct, that the city and the planners came up with the idea first. And as that was rolled out into the community, and I remember talking to Hannah years ago at a table at immigration, they said, we're putting an overlay on this boundary, and this is how it's going to shake out. And as we began community consultation and really drilling down and looking at what that would feel like, they said, no, this is not representing the residents who live here. We want our community council member more integrally involved. We want to have some stop gaps. We want to have some communication. And so during the formal meeting in 2023, Salt Lake Council passed a legislative action requesting that staff study options for zoning text amendments. So this is the kind of study that they put together. I'll have that report that I can share with you via email. It can go out to our entire listserv and you can have a better sense of that context. But let's move on to the next slide. The important takeaway there is that City Council and our representative, Dan Dugan, is integrally involved in all of these questions and ideas, and it will ultimately be up to him to decide to pass it or not pass it. So some of the high level points that we've touched on is that what we're seeing in the zoning changes really don't give citizens enough of a sense of how they would impact us. We don't have a sense of the total number of houses that would likely become more densely built. So if they could give us an idea in your boundaries with what we're looking at and lot sizes, we see 20 houses being potentially affected. We see 50, we see 200. Having a sense of those numbers, I think, would be very helpful. Robin Carbach, who is on our board and longtime leader and urbanist, has been such an asset in walking through some of these issues. She said that there's so much software now where people could go in and say, what would it look like if, you know, the house next to me that's 20 feet, we're 30 feet. How would that affect the light? How would that affect times through the day? Just things that, I mean, we're all so used to playing in different ways with different technologies. It could be a really important way for us to understand how to visualize pretty abstract concepts that are being thrown at us in just a few quick slides. And then we see the last point here, rising rental and sale housing costs low. They're not really keeping pace with the cost of housing and the cost of salaries are not really aligned in this way. So we're lucky to have a housing specialist from the Kim Gardner Policy Institute in our boundaries and talking through the proposal and some of the numbers with him. His takeaway was, we understand that the city is trying to incentivize density so that more families can live where there are schools. And, you know, on paper, there's a lot to be said about what the programs are trying to do. But the fact of the matter is, the land values within our boundaries are so high and the cost of labor is so high that when you put those two things together, if you look at building a townhouse or a fourplex, and he used some interesting comparables across from Westminster that were really useful to see, you're still looking at rents that come out between $4,000 and $6,000 a month. And that is not really going to pull in lots of young families. So we need to think, if we're tearing down houses or building 3 houses on big lots, is that really going to, you know, provide family or housing for families that would like to stay in the neighborhood, or is it going to create another unintended consequence? So it was really helpful for me to think through this set of thinking. If we can move to the next slide. I was able to go to a couple of the public meetings, and what occurred to me over and over as we were able to look more closely at the offsets and the descriptions is really exchanging a community that has a lot of green space and prioritizes mature plantings and native habitat. I can't tell you how often we move through the neighborhood and we see houses that were 4-bedroom homes that all had 5 kids and kids shared a bedroom and there was a front lawn and a back lawn. And now there's not a front lawn and there's not a back lawn, but there's a very big kitchen and like a deck off the back, but no trees, no lawn. And so I think Robin shared an old idea of hers that is, romanticized, but I still think widely held, that Yalecrest is a kind of public park that we've all turned into a neighborhood. And I think that that shared sense of green space is something that we all value. We know that it has an economic value, which we see in our property taxes, our housing prices. But in addition to having an economic value, it has a huge value to the kind of community that we have, a walkability, public transportation, all of these pieces. So if we're talking about, say, a house on Sunnyside that somebody said, I could definitely have 3 small homes on my lot. But what I couldn't do is have any of the 35 trees that we've planted over the last 30 years. So what is the cost of pulling out all grass, trees, and I just think this impact on biodiversity, green space, what we're talking about, I mean, there are climate change effects, heat elevates as we take out grass. All of these pieces, I think, are important to think through and talk about as we're considering public comment. And finally, the last slide is, there was a master plan, it looks like in 2023, talking about aligning growth with a report called Thriving in Place, which does have to consider future land and water policy, public transportation, walkability, and local historic districts. So I think that Yalecrest has significant investments in each of these ideas, and we need to think about how each of these areas is going to be impacted by how we think about more dense housing and how we want to make some of those trade-offs. So now this is the final slide. A lot of the feedback is saying we understand what the goal is. We all want more affordable housing. We all want a mix of families being able to find housing next to good schools. But do we have a sense of the market analysis that allows us to get there? Do we have a sense of unintended consequences? Have we thought about how major demolition, waste, dust, noise, all of these things will impact our community over time if these sorts of changes become the norm and sort of a rolling part of living here? So these slides hold the feedback of a lot of conversations over the last couple of weeks, but we definitely want to make sure that all of Yalecrest feels like they have a lot of information and a lot of chance to respond. I think I said at the beginning of the meeting, they've extended the feedback period into May. So we have another few weeks to talk about it. There's a land use and zoning committee meeting at the Hive this Monday that I think a lot of thought and organization has gone into creating a more consolidated response. So if it would be useful to go to the meeting on the 20th, that's run through the Sugar House Community Council. Yes, and it will be held at the Hive. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to talk with Matt, who's our technical resource in so many ways, to see if we can do a special newsletter providing all of these resources and links that will go out, especially dedicated to the zoning changes question. But all of this will be part of our meeting summary tonight, and make sure that that you're talking to your friends and neighbors who you know will want to provide feedback.
I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Yalecrest has lost 32 acres of open space at least since in my lifetime.
Yeah, that I don't think a lot of people do know that. And I think it's just exactly that kind of quantifiable number that we need to be aware of, because on the surface, I think there is a veneer that things look a lot like they've always looked. But 32 acres in an area this size is a huge.
I can't imagine that any other neighborhood council has lost that much.
No, that's an incredible loss.
Is that in public spaces or
reduced.
Well, for instance, there's 5.5 acres where this building is that we lost.
Yeah.
And another 2 acres in Sunnyside Park. We lost 13 acres at Roland Hall. And we lost, where the stake center is, 9 acres, so it adds up after a while.
I think it's very helpful to keep a high level view of those numbers. So I appreciate the specificity of adding that. So let
Can
them,
I add
yeah.
comments here? The governor has said that one of his initiatives is more housing, more density. And I kind of feel like this initiative by Salt Lake City it's because the pressure that Salt Lake City is getting from the state to be a little bit more flexible in their zoning and what they're looking and allowing for housing. There's a lawmaker who tried to pass a bill at the last minute, it did not pass, where he was gonna be, Utah would have been the big brother over cities like Salt Lake City, mandating and requiring them to allow more lots, more homes on smaller lots, like taking a quarter of an acre and allowing up to 3 units on a quarter acre, and taking that power away from Salt Lake City to do
Was
ourselves.
he a developer?
It was actually someone, it was Dr. Ray Ward from Belleville area, and he was working with Home Builders Association for that.
Surprise, surprise.
So this is where I think it's either the stick or the carrot. This is definitely the carrot method of trying to get the Salt Lake City to move forward with a little bit, increasing density a little bit more. So that, I think that's useful information for you when you want to speak with other leadership and your feelings about it in Yalecrest.
So, I mean, that's fine if they're expecting the people inheriting the all of half acre lots to do the same thing. But I'm guessing they're not, right? In South Jordan, where it's, minimum a third of an acre, right? Like, there's a lot of the suburbs that have been built so, undense that to come and expect Salt Lake where the average lot size in my neighborhood is 0.16 acres, 0.14 acres. So like, is there any sort of, shared burden with the half an acre, full acre lot people?
Where right now, I can't recall why at the last minute that bill died. But there's a lot of chatter out there that, Salt Lake City's not living up to what other people were having to force. Other cities are getting more innovative in how they're fitting more homes onto their lots. There's conversations about how do they pressure Salt Lake City to get on board with it as well. But that is a really relevant argument that some of our lots are definitely,
Well, if you just consider street frontage, you don't have room for a car, you don't have room for two sets of garbage cans, there's a lot of problems associated with it. Generally speaking, the Yalecrest frontage is around 60 feet. What he's talking about is probably close to 150.
for those other lots outside of Salt Lake City.
Mhm.
I think the most important takeaway from this meeting is to think about how we want to use the next 2 to 3 weeks and make sure that we are sharing our feedback, our opinions, our experience, our expertise with the Planning Commission. I find it very useful to share information with our council representative, Dan Dugan, because I do think that it was the intense pressure that we put on him in this last go round where he said, I can't represent my constituents with rubber stamp on this. I think there was a ton of pressure to just get it through, He's like, I can't. My constituents understand and have really good reasons for thinking and feeling what they are expressing, and we need to find a way to put policy around that. I shared an anecdote. We moved back to Utah from Sydney several years ago, and I remember the process there was, an extremely dense city, all surrounded by water, totally just blocked in housing supply, and everything was regulated within like an inch of its life. And I remember we were looking at a tiny row house. There was like 5 feet of garden, 3 feet of it was grass, and we're like, could we just Like there wasn't a kitchen, I don't know, there like wasn't room for a table. And we're like, can we put the table in the back? And they're like, if you kill the grass, the answer is no. We cannot lose 1 foot of grass. We need every living thing in our city. And we're like, well, all right, this isn't gonna work for us. So I think it just goes to show that there are ways to codify and put value and put rules around protecting grass and trees and green space and shared green space and all of those kinds of things when, as a community, we stand together and say, no, this is gonna have some protection. So, yes, Vicky.
Can I just ask, who was the Kempsey Gardner housing analyst? Do you remember his name?
That is Dan Ezek.
Uh-huh.
If you, I mean, I feel like it's only a strength to be able to use Dan's name.
Right.
So
Fantastic.
I think we're so lucky. And the fact that he was reassured about where we sit in this mix and he's very open to broader conversations and smaller conversations. I don't think we could have a more well-placed expert in our boundaries. So let's use that thing.
And so, as a passion stuff, are you suggesting that we all, if we're persuaded of all this, that we contact Dan directly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I think it's a very useful and productive time to be in conversation with the planning committee. I've been in conversation with the planning committee the last month. They're very open to it. They have lots of good things to say about where these ideas came from and where they're going and how they might be adapted. But I do think it's helpful to include Dan in all of our thinking and where we come down. And if we want to look at formalizing a working group or some kind of collective statement as we come toward the end of the comment period in the next few weeks, let's look at the right structure for that and who would want to be involved. So we'll ask Matt if we can get all of these resources out on a specific email.
Yeah, okay, one other
Yes.
ask. Can you send along in writing the little summary that he provided on the economics of it?
I can ask him. I can ask him if I can share it. I am sure that it probably wouldn't be a problem. And I told him I would be bringing it up and his high level analysis tonight. He may say no, he may want to refine it, but I will certainly ask him if it can be shared broadly.
Those rental numbers are astounding.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they are. Now, do we have someone from I-80 here?
Yes, that is me, Rachel. I am here online.
Wonderful. We have your slides teed up next. And
Perfect.
are you, sorry, tell me, who are you? Where are
So my name is Sarah Kay. I am a consultant for UDOT doing public involvement on the project.
Thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me. Do you prefer to share my slides there, or do you want me to pull them up on my own?
If you can pull them up, that would be
Okay,
ideal.
perfect. Yep, let's do that.
What's it, IME, did you say?
Okay, are you guys able to see my screen?
Not just yet.
Oh, IME.
Oh, let's see, I gotta hit accept. Okay, there we go, that would help. Okay, how about now? Can you, oh, you're muted if you're talking. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I am here on behalf of UDOT. We are here just to give some updates on some upcoming construction happening on I-80, both in Salt Lake County and Summit County. So just a quick little agenda. I'll go through some project overviews. We'll hit on what to expect starting this summer, talk about some ongoing communication channels that we have, and then we'll leave some time for some questions as well. So jumping into project overviews. So UDOT is investing a lot on I-80 starting this summer with 6 construction projects starting in Summit and Salt Lake County. There's going to be 8 bridge locations that are being improved, 49 miles of culvert rehabilitation, and 11 miles of fiber installation, along with 22 miles of repaving along I-80. In addition to that, they're also doing some improvements on SR 224 up in Summit County. There's 3 additional construction projects in Park City, 2 intersections being improved, and then 1 new bus rapid system. So this will give you kind of a general idea of the area. You can see kind of down in Salt Lake is where it starts here at 2300 East. And then you can go all the way up I-80 to Emory, and there's going to be some sort of construction work happening that the public's going to see. So to the public, they're just going to see this as one project. They're not going to know these are individual projects. So we're trying to make it super easy for people to go to one spot to get information, having information to go to specific project representatives, but really trying to make it as easy as possible for the public to get information so they can know what to expect. Hitting on just the schedule, like I mentioned, we do have some starting in 2026, and then others won't happen until 2027 or 2028. But the first project that you guys are going to see is the I-80 paving projects. There's one starting as early as May 10th that I'll hit on in the next slide. But those are planned to go through the summer. They will end in the fall, so those are just a 1-season construction project. There will be bridge reconstruction happening up at Jeremy Ranch. That's anticipated to start probably end of May timeframe, and that's going to continue into fall of 2027. There's going to be the maintenance projects happening on I-80 in the canyon, along with the fiber in the canyon. And then looking later into potentially August, the schedule for the Parleys Bridges project is still a little bit up in the air. It could get pushed to 2027, but I'll hit on that slide in a second here as well. So specifically for those I-80 paving projects, like I had mentioned, we do have an anticipated start date of May 10th. They are going to start at this first phase here, which is 2300 East to Stillman Bridge. During this time and during this work, I-80 is going to be reduced to 1 lane overnight. Their work hours are going to be Sunday through Thursday from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. each night. And then during the day, during rush hour, all lanes are required to be open. With the lane closures also, there is going to be reduced widths for trucks. So we're doing a lot of engagement with motor carriers, making sure the trucks know that they cannot get through the work zone. Phase 2, which is a little bit further up the canyon by Lambs Canyon, that's going to begin a little bit later in the summer. There might be a little bit of overlap, but again, that's just a 1-season construction project, so it'll wrap up probably in September. For the I-80 Parleys Canyon Bridges, we don't have an exact schedule for this project, but it is 7 bridge improvements up Parleys Canyon. You can see the orange boxes are going to be deck replacements, which tend to be a little bit more impactful to the public. The big one that's going to happen is going to be that Foothill Drive Bridge over I-80. Obviously, that's a very high trafficked area. It's going to be difficult to get traffic back and forth. We will maintain lanes, but that's going to be a heavy lift and impactful to the public. So we want to just make sure we're talking to as many people as possible early. But this bridge, specifically the Foothill Drive, is not going to happen until 2028. With just the challenges of the maintenance of traffic, it's taking us a little bit more time to get everything dialed in. And then, of course, with the Temple Open House happening in 2027, we don't want to mess with anything on Foothill Drive. The rest of the bridges will be done in phases. Potentially, there could be one up further the canyon that's done this summer, but at this point, we don't have an exact schedule that we're ready to share yet. Okay, before I go into communication channels, is there any construction-related questions? I know that was a lot and kind of high level. We'll definitely be able to share a little bit more information as we get specific details, but of course, just wanted to give the information as early as we have it at this point.
I have a quick question. The bridge over I-80 on Foothill, there was a lot of construction that happened a couple of years back that went on forever. Wasn't that addressed then, or was that bridge not addressed during the construction?
So that bridge was not. This is an extremely old bridge near the end of its life, so it's needing a full deck replacement at this time.
And will there be complete like shutdown, or is it just gonna be done during off peak time so that there still can be traffic going?
Yes. Yep, great question. So there won't be a full shutdown on it. There's 6 lanes there now. The plan is to at least have 3 with a movable barrier to be able to have to either going southbound or northbound based on events, based on the time of day. We'll be able to move around those barriers. That could change. I think we'll always be thinking of new ideas. We know that it's going to be a painful area, but there will not be a full shutdown of the bridge at all.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Good question.
The question is, UDOT committed to moving the signage for access to the university from 1300 East to Foothill. Is that going to happen after this, or is it not going to happen at all?
That's a question I'd have to take back to UDOT specifically. And then I'm happy to follow up with you. I don't have the exact details for the signs for this project.
Sarah,
Yes.
thank you so much for this overview. We've just run a little bit over time, so I'll let you just put the ongoing communication slide up, and then
Perfect.
we better move on to our final section. But thank you so much for providing the overview.
Of
I
course.
know we were talking about when the right time would be, and it's really helpful that you made this work tonight.
Of course. Yeah. Happy to be here. Here's our hotline, email, and website. I'll send out the slides as well, but I'm sure we'll be back once we have a little bit more information and we have some more details. But of course, feel free to reach out at any time before then.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, guys, now it's the main event. We have Vicki Frelick who will provide an overview. Vicki, sorry. Always my technical pieces. We'll get there, guys. Vicki's going to provide an overview of the speakers that she's organized in her ongoing excellent work of keeping us healthy. Thank you.
Hardly the main event. I just have some process updates tonight. As I think most of you are aware. Excuse me. There's water? No, I'm good. There's an inquiry process about whether there may be a high incidence of blood cancers in the Yalecrest neighborhood. And if so, there are environmental drivers. The two unique things in our neighborhood are the PCE plume from VA hospital and the Chevron oil spill 2010. I want to headline that next Wednesday, April 29th, there's a meeting on the PCE plume, a community meeting that's being hosted by VA. All the details are on the yalecrestneighborhood.org website. I think it's really good for as many of us to be there as possible. It's supposed to understand this complex situation and to demonstrate to VA the intense community interest in getting this resolved. Many of you are aware that Huntsman Cancer Institute initiated in January the possibility of a partnership with Yalecrest Neighborhood Council to try to better understand what's going on in the neighborhood. We had hoped to hear from Dr. Sporov, who's leading that. We'd hoped to hear from him tonight. And he's requested more time to organize this process and update us. So my final point tonight is on the Chevron oil spill. There had been a state report on the spill, and then a lot of time passed. I was able to get insight, advice, perspective from Jim VanDerslice. Jim is the director of the Division of Public Health at the University Medical School. And I very much appreciate that Jim has helped me understand this complex issue better. And also initiated an inquiry with Salt Lake County Health Department. And so I'm going to turn the time to Jim to explain a little bit more about process, and then to Jenny Robertson from the county health.
Thanks for having me here. And you've got just a powerhouse in Vicki. She came to me over a year ago and, brought the white paper, and I looked at it and we talked about it some. And she wanted me to just give an update so you understand where things started and where they've gone, because as a community, you guys have been facing first Chevron, VA, and then what seems to be an elevated number of multiple myeloma cases. So a lot of concern over a lot of period of time. Now, I work at the U, I'm a prof, but before that, I was for several years an epidemiologist with the Washington State Department of Health and dealt with the same kinds of concerns in a lot of communities. And so even like back there, it's a slow process, and organizations like the state health department, they have a fairly regimented way that they do things. And so that's one of the reasons that things do take longer. Another thing though is there are problems with communication sometimes. So where I sort of fit into this is after talking to Vicky, then I went and I talked to people at the Utah Cancer Registry that gathers all the data on all the cancer cases. And they're really they're the ones to go to for all the information. And I asked them if they were aware about the concerns here, and they were, and they had sent data to the state health department, which they do on a regular basis. They're the ones who gather it from all the docs, process it. They write a report to look for trends, to look for areas where there are some elevations, and then they provide it to the state. As you know, the state had done an analysis back after 2010. It's been a while since I read the report, but at the time, they didn't find any cancers that were elevated above what would be expected. And what expected is sort of over time and across the state, what's the rate? And there's different ways of doing it. One of the things that was part of the agreement is that they would redo that analysis, and it hadn't been done. And Vicky had talked to people at the Department of Environmental Quality who had then contacted the state health department, you know, to say, okay, it's been that time period, you should be doing this reanalysis. And pretty much there wasn't any information that had come out. And after I talked to the Utah Cancer Registry, they gave me the name of the people at the health department who were, you know, they sent the information to and they thought we're working on it. I talked to them, which led me to another person, talked to them. They said that the analysis was underway. And they said that, you know, really the jurisdiction is Salt Lake County Health Department, and we should talk to Salt Lake County Health Department. So we called up Jenny Robertson, Salt Lake County Health Department, and she's been now the one interfacing with the state, and I'm going to turn the time over to her to talk about what's going on now. Oh, one last thing is just with regards to Huntsman, these kinds of analyses and working with communities, there's a lot of benefit from letting the process go through the official channels. That health departments are ones that, and you may not agree or see it, but they've got the experience and they have the talent in working with communities. Many times in the academic setting, there isn't that experience and there isn't that subtlety. I know because I've worked in both sides of it. And so in my conversations with Dr. Sporov and some of you remember Mike Madsen from the Utah Population Database, I've worked with him for years. They're moving along, but really what would be best is to see what does the state come up with. Well, I'll let you give the update on the Red Butte Creek report and all, but that there really is a lot of benefit to letting the public health agencies take the first crack at it and then see what comes out.
Yeah. Thanks, Dr. VanDerslice. My name is Jenny Robertson. I work at Salt Lake County Health Department. So we're responsible for public health in all of Salt Lake County, including Salt Lake City. I want to thanks Vicki and Jim for setting this foundation. I'll build on that a little bit and explain the process as it comes to a local health department. We've got a local health department here, and then we've got a state health department. Probably the public doesn't distinguish
between our different agencies, but we have a local and we have state. I want to explain the process of how these cancer concerns come to us, and then we can talk about how this process is going. So typically what happens is a resident such as yourselves, you might notice that there's maybe an increase in cancer in your neighborhood. You start talking to your neighbors, you're talking to friends and family, and you're concerned about this elevated rate or the number of people with cancer. I'm your first point of contact at the local health department. You might end up calling the state health department or the Department of Environmental Quality or the cancer registry. They're all going to refer you to the local health department first because this is our jurisdiction, and they'll need kind of a go ahead from us to do further work. A resident will get in touch with our health department. I'm the one who will end up chatting with you. I'll find out information like what kind of cancers are you seeing? What do the numbers look like? Where might these individuals live? I think you've seen some information flash up here about what Vicky has collected. Vicky's done an amazing job collecting all of that information. So I'll collect all of that. I have access to some limited data in my role that, depending on the cancer type, can tell me whether what the resident is reporting is unusual or not, to kind of start to investigate what's going on there. In the case of rarer cancers like multiple myeloma or some of these blood cancers, that's a little bit harder to do. So what happened here with Vicky's concern, thankfully she got connected with Dr. VanDerslice. Dr. VanDerslice is working with our agency and was able to connect with me. So we sat down with Vicky, chatted with her. You already had all of the information that we needed to go through. That's fantastic. I wasn't able to do any kind of analysis myself, so that's when I reach out to the state health department. So the state health department is the one who is leading this analysis right now. They were unfortunately not able to be here tonight, but I can share a couple of updates.
Who's the contact?
At the state health department, it's the environmental epidemiology program. So they've got multiple staff members there. I can share an email address. It's really easy. It's eep@utah.gov. But I can make sure I just got that for any follow-up. This situation though raised a few questions, because there's the question about the Chevron oil spill and the follow-up assessment. And then the PCE plume that Vicky mentioned. So when I reach out to the state health department, I confirm that yes, they are working on this follow-up assessment. So that's what's in progress right now. What that means is they're going to redo those statistics. This is the first look at to see whether there is an elevation in the number of multiple myeloma and other blood cancers in the particular study area from that study. And that study area covers the neighborhoods that Vicky's been reaching out to and investigating. So they are redoing that analysis right now. What that means is that they will go back about 30 to 40 years and look at all of that data up until about 2023. It takes a couple of years for cancer data to be finalized and validated before public health gets to use it. So we'll probably cover 30 to 40 years worth of data, and they'll look at these 5-year time chunks and the rate of different cancers in each of those time periods. So they'll be able to look at whether cancers are increasing, decreasing, if they're staying the same, and they'll be able to say whether it looks different or if it's higher than elsewhere in the state. Yeah.
Do the people have to stay within that catchment area, or is it gonna be able to catch people who have moved outside the neighborhood?
Like someone who gets diagnosed with cancer?
Yeah.
Yes. So in Utah, cancers are reportable to the Utah Cancer Registry, and they do receive information from other state registries.
And like, would it highlight that they lived in this neighborhood during one of those specific periods of time?
Yes, they'll have demographic information like addresses and all the laboratory information, all that kind all that kind of information for monitoring. Yeah. So they'll calculate these rates over that course of time. See if anything's increasing, decreasing, and if it looks higher than elsewhere in the state. So that's what they're working on right now. The other update they have is that they're working with CDC on some activities related to that PCE bloom. So that's ongoing. Unfortunately, I don't have details on those activities, but that's actively happening right now as well. I don't have a time frame for the report, but they're working on it right now. They're working through some new methodologies and making sure they have.
They being the state.
The state health department, yes, I'm sorry. I know there's the local and the state. The state is working through that process right now. So I can talk through a little bit more on how these rates are calculated, if that helps. But that's where we are with that update with the report.
That's incredibly helpful. Thank you so much. After our January meeting, I have had so many questions with people saying like, what's happening next? Where is it going? How does it work? And so I think this month provided a really essential touch point of understanding the process. And Dr. VanDerslice, it's really helpful to hear your feedback that the channels that are already in place and well oiled to answer these kinds of questions and address broad community concern is a great place to start, and the communication in place with you through Vicky.
Is there
I know.
opportunity for questions?
Yeah.
On Military Drive, for the first 9 houses from 900 South down to the 9th house, there were 3 cancers. I'm one of them. One of them is dead. The other person is moved, so I don't know how we can keep track of her. Her last name is Hickman. And so I don't know how you deal with people who have, exposure to benzene and therefore cancer, and tracking them down. I don't know how you find them, but I assume you're trying to do that.
That, as I understand it, the Utah Cancer Registry does that, but I don't know how frequently they might receive some of this out-of-state information. Presumably someone, it sounds like someone moved out of state and was diagnosed out of state and previously lived here.
They were diagnosed here.
Oh, okay, then they would be represented in that.
Well, I don't know what it specifically sounded, but I know that they're very sick.
Yeah. If they were diagnosed here, they would be in that Utah Cancer Registry.
I look forward to meeting them.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think Sarah's question, Jim's, I'm sort of in that same zone of trying to understand whether what the Utah Cancer Registry it has, it sounds to me like it's a snapshot of the people who live in an area at that point in time. And so how might we, or does it have longitudinal information about where people lived? And, yeah, that seems. So as an example, the PCE plume, one of the areas where the water table is very high and there seems to be a high level of risk is East High School. So I've been very curious, about getting longitudinal information from people who went to East High School. And I'm trying to understand whether the cancer registry would reflect that in any way.
If someone was diagnosed with cancer?
Well, if someone went to East High School and then they moved off,
Oh, yeah,
out of state.
if they hadn't been diagnosed with cancer, that information wouldn't exist.
Well, but if they have been diagnosed with cancer, but they no longer live in the
But
city,
now they
that's
moved
not
out.
going to be captured.
You might be taught there for who knows how long.
Right,
And then
like
they
what
live
about
outside of it.
teachers, yeah,
Right, they don't have to
Yeah.
necessarily live in Yale.
Right.
Right, good point.
yeah.
There's sort of 2 different questions that come up. One is, does it seem like there have been more cancers than expected? And that's to me the first question. And that is based typically on where the person was living at the at the date of diagnosis. And the cancer registry has that, that's very standard. The second question is, are there exposures that are leading to the increase in some cancer or some other outcome? And the cancer registry isn't designed to try to track everyone before they're diagnosed or after they're diagnosed, or if they go out of state at some point in time. That's where it becomes sort of more of a research investigation. And there are, like the University of Utah Population Database, there is information for people's residential history. And I mean, I've worked on studies where you can look at exposures that you think or could have happened into the past, and then follow those people forward and see, did it seem like there were more adverse health outcomes that were occurring to people that were potentially exposed, because it's been a long time, as compared to people that lived in other areas. But the two things really take different kinds of data. And the first thing to do is really saying, does there seem to be in this area more cancers than what you would expect, based on what's happening in the rest of the population?
Yeah, what Jim is describing is this, and what you mentioned earlier as well, is there's a stepwise process that the state health department goes through, and that we as a local health department will work through with them. The second question, or the second point that you're describing is a research study. That is like the final step in this process. So we start with, we talk with Vicky, we talk with residents, we see where your concerns are, and then we do, the next step is taking a look at that initial statistical data. Does that point us in a direction? Does it look like things are elevated more than we would expect? And then we, depending on those findings, we could move into a feasibility study to understand how feasible it is to do one of these research studies. And then that final step is the research study.
I've been doing environmental monitoring for a lot of different corporations and so forth, for environmental impact statements and so forth, and baseline data with gathering and a lot of those kind of things. And thinking, it seems to me to be the most unsettling thing that, in my recollection, that's ever happened, is the fact that the EPA required the state or the city to put in monitoring stations in Red Butte Creek. There were 4 or 5 of them, and the city immediately tore them out. And I'm wondering what the state's reaction to something like that might have been.
Oh, I'm not sure. That's a very good question from the state health department. I can take that back to them. Yeah.
It's just not right. I mean, if we're talking about doing, monitoring, that would have been a key component.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, we're so glad to have connected with you and have a better understanding of the process and resource. And there are a huge number of community members invested in following this and seeing where it takes us. So thank you so much. And then we are out of time, guys. But
I'm really pleased that the state is moving forward.
yes.
Sometimes it's very easy to not see what's going on, but there's a lot of work happening.
Okay.
So thank you, guys. We covered a lot tonight. Thank you so much for being here, and let's follow up. Make sure to grab your information from home. And next month is our water conservation month. We have the yard farmer coming to give us a special class. I don't know, I feel like Yalecrest might be her biggest fans. I mean, for everyone. I got the yard farmer to come to our meeting, and a conservation gardener, a specialist from the conservation gardener. No, still not it. A specialist from the conservation garden. Yes, 2-pronged gardening experts, water conservation. Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Awesome.
Hey, say guys.
There's like 400,000 followers.
Just 400,000 followers, guys. She's gonna talk to the people